It's me, it's the one old Puffin, welcoming you to Starfleet Universe on Call. And tonight, it's me, it's Barry, and we have some people in the chat room. We have Dave, and we have some other person which I don't know, be Merle. But anyway, Barry, how you doing?
Fabulous. How are you doing?
Doing
It's
good.
been a few
Doing
weeks
good.
since I've been here.
Yeah, that was been quite a few weeks. Got those early morning flights to get,
Yeah,
to thank that for.
yeah. And, the aftermath of that early morning flight was something quite pleasant, face-to-face with Mr. William Shatner, or at least my wife and son were.
Mm-hmm.
And I posted, or my wife created a YouTube video. I posted it. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
Oh, do you want me to send it to you again? It was quite hysterical.
Yes. I don't.
Yeah.
It's possible you
So,
sent it to me, and I deleted the text, or I'm not sure how you sent it to me. To be honest.
I believe I sent a text message.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a very interesting story there.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think I actually, at the last minute, we had some last minute tickets
Right.
that were available, and I offered them to you, and you were unable to take advantage of that opportunity.
Yep. That's true. Sad but true.
But Erica and Doug Howard Jr. were able to take advantage of that, so they
Oh,
went instead
awesome.
of you. So we had, but so we had 6 tickets total, 2 with front row VIP backstage passes to actually talk to Mr. Shatner, and my wife was able to get him a gift package.
Mm-hmm.
And the YouTube video is detailing that gift package. So the story of how those 2 tickets came to be was apparently there is a photographer who is Mr. Shatner's favorite photographer to use.
Mm-hmm.
He would certainly have the need for a photographer.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and so this photographer recently acquired a puppy through us.
Oh, okay.
So, and Deb and this photographer, his name is, you're going to like his name, Joe DiMaggio.
Oh. I definitely like the name.
Yes. And he is an amazing photographer and took probably the best picture ever taken of Mr. Shatner, which is detailed in the YouTube video. And this is Star Trek related, so I think it kind of has
Right.
Star Trek
No, understood.
So, yeah. So, any case, William Shatner sent 2 photographs to our house. Now, Joe sent 50 copies of this best picture he's ever taken of William Shatner to Mr. Shatner as his private, here's 50 signed and numbered, or numbered photos. Mr. Shatner took 2 of them and sent them to us, signed, personalized.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. And of course, Deb posted those pictures of those photos on the YouTube.
Cool.
So yeah. So but Deb was saying, what do you get as a gift for a man worth $1 billion?
got me on that one. I have no clue.
Well, you ever watch a show called Boston Legal?
Yes. Actually, wasn't Shatner
And
on
at the
Boston
end
Legal?
of every William Shatner, of course, he was Denny Crane.
Yeah, I thought I remember that correctly.
We're actually we've just started rewatching Boston Legal. Oh, it is hysterical. And the writing is just so witty and funny.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably one of the best comedies ever made. And yeah, William Shatner won several Emmys from that. Those were the only Emmys he's ever won were for his part in Boston Legal.
Wow.
And they were well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. And basically he was playing himself.
That makes it. Actually, I was just saying that makes it simple, but I don't think that actually is simple for an actor to actually to be yourself on screen. You know.
Yeah, but oh my God, it is just any case. So at the end of every single episode, James Spader and William Shatner are on a balcony, on like the 30th or 40th floor of a prestigious office building, their law office,
Mm-hmm.
smoking cigars and drinking very expensive whiskey. And that's the trademark scenes. And those scenes were just wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
We know Mr. Shatner is a big cigar aficionado.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out there's an incredibly interesting cigar shop in New York City. And so, and they make cigars that you can't, apparently the proprietor makes the claim that particular cigars, he makes them himself from particular custom blends, and it's like tobacco aged for 20 years,
Wow.
We're talking, you can't get, I mean, you're going to have to look hard and wide. It's not like your $20 cigar.
Oh, understood.
Yeah. So we got 2 of those for Mr. Shatner.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you get for a man?
Yeah. Oh, hey, that's the kind of thing you get for me, basically, for a man who needs nothing, wants nothing. It's something that he can appreciate, and especially in this case that you knew him well enough that you knew that he liked cigars. And of course, anyone who likes cigars like good cigars.
And the stories he told on stage, the life lessons, oh my God, they were just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
They were awesome. And his experience when he went into space on the Blue Origin
Mm-hmm.
rocket, and the way he described it, it was like, yes. And it was also heartening to know that apparently to get into the rocket capsule, you had to climb up the stairs to get to the top of the launch tower, 11 stories of stairs.
Wow.
So at the age of 90, this man was able to climb 11 stories, which, by the way, the base of the tower is at 4,000-foot elevation.
Wow.
And he was able to do that. Not once, but twice. The day before, they were testing to see whether he could do it,
Mm-hmm.
kind of as a physical. And the second day, he did it to get into the capsule. So, and there was also much discussion about Ricardo, and I can't pronounce it. I cannot read my R's the way he does. So Ricardo Montalban.
Ricardo
There was a
Montalban.
screening of the. There was a screening of the Wrath of Khan with Ricardo Montalban before he came on stage. Because if you're going to have him there, you're not going to have him there on stage for 3 hours. Nothing. It was just too much.
Right.
So they showed the movie, and then he's on stage for an hour. Yeah, but well, so he had some things to say about Ricardo. He said was a wonderful man, and he had some wonderful stories to tell about Ricardo, and so there were some pictures of him in the YouTube video.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what that's all about. So you're wondering, why is there so many pictures of Ricardo? It's because William Shatner spent 10 minutes talking about him after we saw the Wrath of Khan.
Understood.
What I didn't realize was that Ricardo, when they filmed the movie, he was barely able to walk.
Wow.
His legs were in horrible shape. He was almost in a wheelchair. But because of that, his upper body strength was just tremendous. And that's part of the reason why he was so ripped looking. And they dressed him accordingly to show that off.
Right. Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Any
Any case.
Sorry to dominate this. So, what was our topic of discussion tonight, other than that?
Something which I'm sure you will be interested in. Omega.
Oh, please tell. Oh, yes. So, what's going on with Omega?
Well, nothing's going on with Omega, but I did have a quick little discussion with a person on YouTube, going back and forth. He posted, I posted a reply.
On YouTube?
Yeah, you can do comments. So I replied to a comment that this person posted, and basically it was about Omega and how it was rushed.
They posted on YouTube, or they posted it somewhere else?
Posted on YouTube, because remember, after I record
send me the link, please.
I record the this episode. I've got it on Twitch. I'm recording the video of me. Sometimes I share my screen, and I post that. I do some quick trimming of the beginning and the end, so I don't have all the hymns and halls before I actually say hello, it's me. And cut out anything that's after I'm done. And I might still record, and then I take that and I go post it up on YouTube. So I got a YouTube channel which I post this up on. So now, unfortunately, I don't think I've been up there long enough. And I said I've not been up there long enough, and I don't have enough subscribers. I don't have a custom link yet. So it is what it is. And that's fine. If someone looks for SFU on call, you will find my videos on YouTube. So if you want to see the links, I've got not all. I got for the past year and a half. That's about right. I've been recording the live show. I've been recording the video and posting up on YouTube. Actually, originally I actually streamed it live to YouTube. Actually, it's been longer than a year and a half. And then Google decided to completely change the way they do YouTube live. And I went, okay, fine. Brought, got OBS all up and running.
Hang on, hang on.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. But so
Yeah.
yes, did it go?
Well, I somebody has been reading a book that I recommended me, and he said I got to this point, and I said, but I wasn't sure, why they did try to capture anybody. He said, well, they didn't have the time or the manpower to capture those ships. He's like, I'm not going to talk to you about the book anymore because you're always giving stuff away, and I'm like, give you any spoilers? The problem was, 20 galleons attacking 160 galleys under very heavy sea conditions, where the galleys were coasters, coastal craft, and the galleons are deep water craft, and this was out in the middle of a freaking storm. So the galleons are very much favored, and they're armed with cannons, and the galleys are trying to do boarding actions, because that's what galleys do. Just come up with the other ship and hit them for a boarding action. And the galleons are trying to hit them with cannons, which they've got a lot of. The galleys can't mount very many cannons because they've got all those oars, so there's no place to mount the cannons. But the problem with the galley is that when you hit it with a cannonball and it rips through a whole bunch of people rowing oars, the whole thing about those oars is timing is everything. They have to be well synchronized and coordinated.
Right.
And when you fire a cannon at the galley, those iron balls ripping through all those men takes that timing and throws it all out of whack. So the galleys basically lose way. So the galleys can't close to do the boarding action. So it was kind of like, I'm saying, did they capture it? He's like, I'm surprised they didn't capture anyone. It's like, they really didn't have that capability. They could take those ships out, but they couldn't capture them. They didn't have they didn't, first of all, they were outnumbered 8-1, or 6-1 actually. So they didn't have the manpower to capture all those ships, to put prize crews on them. And they only had so much daylight to work with. They just didn't have the time to work those ships over.
Mm-hmm.
They really couldn't capture anybody. And if they had captured anybody, the ships they would have been capturing would have been useless to them.
Right.
So, yeah.
Because they had technology they didn't understand. They weren't familiar with.
Oh, no. They understood the technology. They understood what a galley was all about. That was the obsolete technology. They had the new technology, the galleons. They switched. In fact, the Tresian Navy had secretly switched over from galleys to galleons because they had just been given several new technologies which allowed them to fire cannons much more rapidly than they had been able to previously. And they were also different ways of mounting cannons, where they actually put them on gun carriages with trunnions, so they could actually elevate them or depress them, so they could actually aim the frickin' cannons.
Right.
Which prior to that point, you basically took the bronze gun tube and you mounted it, you strapped it to a large stick. you aim the cannon by aiming the frickin' ship.
Right.
You know, it's just, you know, that's why nobody used cannons, because they were, you know, they had a short range. You couldn't really aim them, and it took so long to reload them that you might have time for one shot before you closed for the boarding action. So it's kind of like, and you couldn't mount that many on a galley. So nobody would use a galleon because it really didn't work.
Right.
But with cannons that could be armed, that could be reloaded quickly, where you could put lots of them on a hang on a second. Where you could put lots of them on the ship, it you know, that's why they switched over to galleons. And the changes that allowed them to reload them faster. They went from matchlocks, where they basically used a lit match to put it in the to flintlock fired.
Right.
And instead of the old way of doing it was you took ladles and poured the powder down the gun tube, and the new technique was put pre-measured amounts of powder in a bag and just shove the whole bag down the barrel.
Right.
And that improved the reload time by like 4 to 5 times. So, and they had also severely improved their gunpowder. They had used corn powder, which is a couple of extra steps of processing, but it made the gunpowder much more reliable, much safer, and more powerful and faster burning. So because it burned faster, they could use a shorter gun tube. And a shorter gun tube with a muzzle loader is a lot quicker to reload, especially when you're talking about very heavy cannons firing, 35-pound, 6-inch diameter iron balls. It's a crew-served weapon, and his reload is, pretty labor-intensive.
Oh, understood.
But if it's a shorter tube, it's a lot quicker to reload.
Understood. So how did we get down this path?
Oh, because a friend of mine has been reading a book where he's been doing the Audible book, and so he comments on it, and I said, oh, well, so his comment was, he said, oh, the battle has started and then finished. The dreadnought gave them a beat down. Not that they are pressing them at night. I'm surprised they are not capturing more ships, but perhaps they will in the next few pages. And I said, hard to capture. They didn't have the time or manpower to do that. Because I'm not going to talk to you anymore about the book. You keep giving away what is about to happen.
Understood. I assume he just texted you about this or something?
Yeah, he just texted me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like, after talk show's over, I'll call Gene, because he's on the West Coast. It's 3 hours.
Understood. Understood. Okay, get back to the topic. That's about the megas.
Omega.
Yes.
Yeah.
And more to the point, one thing that was brought up, of course, which is we both have not extensively talked about it, though we have mentioned it in the past. So I figured it's a good topic to bring back up again, which is the balance of the Omega weapons and more, and of course the empires themselves. Now,
yes,
well, and I think we both can agree that they got some pretty neat weapons.
Oh, there's some great ideas in there.
Oh yeah. The one
ideas in there.
I was just looking at, which was interesting, which is the Caligar antimatter cloud generators, which is one of the few.
Oh yes.
few weapons in SFB that actually affect the
Area
whole
effect.
hex.
Yeah.
Does damage to...
It's basically it's basically a T-bomb with instantaneous detonation. It's a direct fire T-bomb.
Yep. Oh yeah, I forgot about those. Oh, what's that one C4 Empire that has like the T-bomb? Actually, T-bomb checkers. I forget what they're called. I thought they're called T-bomb throwers. There's some on that, which was I have to relook at C4 because there were some neat things like the sharks, something sharks.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
And the one thing I read about
the cloud generators are freaking awesome.
Yep. Of course, one thing
however.
Yeah. Go.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to mention is that the one thing that I was reading the effect of it and went, that's interesting, which is that the player who owns the ship gets to decide where the damage goes. So it's not like, okay.
No.
What's that?
The target ship. The
yes.
target ship gets to pick where
yes.
the damage goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So if it's not like an developer torpedo where it takes equal damage
like a Hellbore where
around the ship. It's whatever the target decides. The player, whose ship that is, that's the target, gets to say what shields it hit. And actually, they give an example in the rule book. It says, well, if there's a ship there with 5 down shields and only 1 up shield, all the damage can go to that 1 up shield.
Yes. Well, and to tell you the truth, if they didn't do that, in a lot of ways, that would be an overpowered weapon.
Agreed. Oh, I agree. Because it's as I said, it's one of the few weapons that actually damages everything in the hex. I think there's some other ones,
yeah.
but
what its main use is taking out that stack of fighters or drones.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the ones with no shields.
That's what it's. Yeah. That's what it's really good for. Fighters and drones.
Oh, agreed. Especially it's good. You get 2d6 to roll.
Yeah.
So, which is always a nice thing.
Well, that's just for hex play. That's for
to hit.
Deciding if it hits the target hex.
Right.
Yeah. And once it hits the damage, it's kind of like a photon torpedo. The damage is based. I think it's double the amount of power you have in it.
I'm looking. I did not look at the damage. Okay. Okay, yeah. Any energy in the ACG may be expended for 1 to 4 points and later 6 points. This allows the color guard to tailor the damage load to be delivered.
Yeah.
And then
you have a capacitor, and a capacitor could be 4 or 6 large, but you can determine how much of the capacitor you use for a shot.
Right.
But there is a 32 impulse delay between firings. Mm-hmm. So theoretically, that thing can fire every single frickin' turn.
Yep. And actually, another interesting about this delay is that.
But is the damage double the amount of energy, or is it just the amount of energy? I forget. I think it's double. It might be the same. It might be the energy. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't. does not. Okay.
It has to say.
Yeah, I know it has to say. I'm trying to find where exactly it says how much damage. Because it says you can use how much energy, but it doesn't.
Under firing procedure, maybe.
That's why that's why I just read. I read everything there, which says
I know it tells you how much damage it does. It's
no, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't say in the firing procedure.
it has to.
It just says how much energy is expended.
Okay.
There's priority, arming procedure. Right, it says the effect. Target affects every. Return a bump. Okay.
Is there a damage table?
Nope. But
there is a to hit table.
Right. And as I was going to want to get to this.
Hit, miss, and near.
Right. There's hit. There's near miss. So it's the amount of damage is reduced, but it still kind of hits and then miss. Complete miss.
No. Damage is not reduced. Damage is not reduced. Near miss doesn't reduce damage. It changes the hex that it hits.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically what happens is that if you get a near miss, you roll a die and walk the damage one hex in that direction. If you get a total miss, you roll a die, you walk the direction in that, you walk the damage in that direction, and you roll a second die and walk it again. So theoretically, a total miss could still hit the original hex.
Mm-hmm.
And a near miss could hit the firing ship. Not likely, but it is a possibility.
That's true. When it's close in.
Right. If you're firing from a range 1, I think you need to roll like a 12 to miss to have a
no. 12 is a near miss.
You can roll a 12. Yeah, 12 is a near miss at range 1, but that could actually hit your own ship.
Yep,
Not
exactly.
Likely, 1 in 36 chance, but you could do it.
Yes, you could. That would be interesting.
Yeah. But other than range 1 or 2.
Okay, for unshielded targets, the weapon.
2, the hit probably.
Right, for unshielded targets, the antimatter cloud causes 2 points of damage for each point of energy in the weapon at the time it fired. And this shield, and the same amount of damage is caused. Okay, it doesn't say explicitly. So my assumption at that point is that it's 1 for 1. Because it says
unshielded, it says 2 for 1, but it doesn't say for shielded.
Right. So if a unit shield, the same amount of damage is caused by the same amount of damage is caused, but can be divided among the shields.
So it does do the same amount of damage. 2 for 1. Yeah.
Right. 2 for 1. Okay. Jeez, that's. I'm sorry. That is poorly worded. Oh, for love of Pete.
I know they did poorly word a lot of stuff, but yeah. So potentially, you put 6 points of power in this thing, and you can do 12 points of damage to everything in a hex.
Yep. Oh, I totally agree there. This is the reason why I want to bring this up as a topic. It's not of course, has some fascinating weapons as we just showed.
Yeah.
Because we spent like 10 minutes just talking about this one weapon. But the one thing about
Now, and the other nice thing is that you don't have to use the whole capacitor.
right, agreed. It's like a particle cannon in that category where you can decide at the time of firing how much energy you got to put. Which is great.
Yeah. Now the firing delay for the next shot is 32 impulses, whether you use 1 or 6 points. It doesn't matter. Still going to be 32 impulses. Firing delay.
Which is fine.
But, yeah, it's a nice drone defense weapon. Because one of the tactics for the Koligar is, you launched a lot of drones against me. I'll grab a whole bunch of them in tractors, as many as I can, bunch them all up, and then plop that antimatter cloud generator on it and take them all out with one shot. And if I just use 2 points of power, which is not that much, and that automatically does 4 points of damage, and, okay, that one and that one survived. I just detected the large drones, which are now weakened. I can take them out with a P3.
True.
Now, the downside of the cloud generator is, unlike an ESG, it is not a 360 weapon. It's a 180-degree weapon.
Did not know it had a limited firing arc.
That is one of the downsides. Yeah, it has a firing arc. It's only 180 degrees.
Okay, that's what. Okay, I wanted to double check on that, which is the antimatter cloud can't affect plasma torpedoes, or basically.
No, you cannot. Only
Right, energy-based objects, it does not affect. So, makes sense. Which makes total sense.
Right. Does not affect plasmas. But the Koligar phasers, oh boy, are they effective against plasma torpedoes.
Understood.
And we've had that discussion a time or three.
Oh, agreed. And Lord knows, definitely have discussion about it, especially in the context of a tournament. And even, if we expand it actually out just a tiny bit, that is not the
Say it.
okay,
Say it.
Not the dance on preemptively on Steve Petrick's grave. That is currently, ADB is not really.
What did you just say? Did you say Steve Petrick's
grave? Yeah, preemptively.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
that's why I didn't want to say that. Yeah. I did not want to say that.
Okay. Yeah.
But you said do it. It's like, okay, go do it then.
Say Steve Petrick's parade.
No, grave. Preemptive on Steve Petrick's grave.
No, you should have said parade. There you go.
Well, I don't think the parade would have made sense. But anyway, and that is ADB, in this case, Steve Petrick, has always been against fixing the rules, fixing the Omega rules.
I know.
And that's one.
I've had that discussion with them.
Oh, yeah, I know you had that discussion with them. But if possibly, see, here's the thing. In my mind, when it comes to the Omega, and that is, okay, people can actually enjoy playing some of the Omega Empires, but splitting off Omega, because most part, Omega's not supposed to fight Alpha octant ships. That's not what's meant to happen. It's supposed to be its own separate little thing.
And I get that. That so let's say it's just Omega versus Omega.
Right.
I'm just saying that they have a whole bunch of different phaser types, and they're all supposed to be balanced within Omega.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's say they are. Okay, but maybe they should be balanced among each other.
Right. Agreed.
You shouldn't have.
Agreed. And that's what I'm
But
getting
you
at.
shouldn't have some that are, yeah.
And that is because in theory the rules can be fixed and they won't affect things outside of
Omega.
the Omega, which
Yeah.
I'm Barry, I'm sure you can agree that Omega isn't widely popular.
That is correct.
There's been all this,
and part of it is because even if we go with, okay, let's just limit it to Omega versus Omega, they're not balanced among each other.
exactly, and that's why I wanted to discuss it at all, which was because of there's certain things that can be done to the rules so that Omega it's a little even though we've got what 5 Omega modules, including the gunship, gunboats.
Right.
I'm not sure how the sales.
But Module 5 is more just pseudo fighters.
Right, the gunboats. PFs.
Yeah.
They're called gunboats in Omega. Well, Dave's mentioning that no one wants to learn rules for 12 phasers. And Dave says he does like Omega, though. Yeah, and the thing is,
for 12, well, there are a lot of different types of phasers. And yes, I understand that, okay, some of them have different capabilities than others.
Right.
And I think that a lot of it could be adjusted by, I think the tables for the damage could be adjusted a little bit. The anti-proton phasers are ridiculously overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
The radiation phasers are also pretty powerful. Particle phasers can be powerful, and all the rest basically, and the microphasers I think are powerful.
Right.
And let's say, and I think I did charts where I said where I compared all the phasers, and I put the standard alpha quadrant phasers in that list and said, okay, here they are in varying, and obviously some of them fall off faster. So at range 0, the most powerful ones are the anti-proton, and then the rad phasers, and the anti-protons are the most powerful at range 0, and then the not wide angles, but the opposite of those, not the particle phasers are the ones that can do insane amount of damage at range 0. But they're based on the die rolls, the damage is all over the place. The antiprotons too, but the average damage I think of the antiprotons is freaking high. The wide angle phasers just suck. And the quantum phasers just suck.
Understood. Now,
although the quantum go ahead.
Yeah, but here's the thing about all the different phasers. Now, I agree. It's kind of nuts, though. At the same time, I don't think that big of a deal overall. But here's the one thing that in my mind, you always have to keep in mind when it comes to phasers for each of the empires. Where does it stand in relation to heavy weapons? Are the phasers actually they're heavy weapons in some cases? I'm not 100% familiar with all of the empires and how all the empires and the weapons that they have on their ships, how they balance out overall when it comes to defensive and offensive capabilities. But
Okay. Well,
in my mind, that's the one keep in mind,
so
because
the Mazarons.
well,
Let's look at them. The Mazarons, they have a tachyon gun, which is a dial-a-photon, basically. And in some ways, it's superior to a photon, and in some ways, it's inferior to a photon. But it's basically pretty close to a photon.
right.
The Kolagars have their antimatter cannons, which I think is one of the best weapons in the game. It's got a lot of options and modes, and I think it's much more powerful than a disruptor. It is a single turn arming weapon, but it can be held.
Right.
And it can do more damage than a disruptor. And you can, there's a caseless mode where you can fire it quickly for ridiculously low amounts of power and doing ridiculously large amounts of damage. But in caseless mode, the only downside of that is if you use caseless mode, it does not damage shields at all.
Right. Right.
So, but that's the antimatter cannon, which I love. Then you've got the Trobrins, which have two variants of their plasma technology. They have their plasma torpedoes, which are a little bit different than standard plasma torpedoes. And then they have a bolted version. And their plasma torpedoes, they don't have when it's in a torpedo, it doesn't have a bolt mode, and their bolts don't have a plasma, the torpedo mode. So, and they don't have, there's a whole bunch of difference, but they have that.
Right.
Then you've got, those are the big ones. Probers, they have their heats, which is their plasma torpedoes, which have some interesting capabilities, but overall it's pretty freaking weak. And let's see. Then you've got the spiders, or the arachnids. They have they have the they have particle beams, which is like a faster firing, weaker version of a particle cannon. It only has an 8 impulse delay, but it's weaker than a particle cannon. It's weaker than a particle cannon, lower accuracy than a particle cannon, but it costs less power to fire, and it actually only has an 8 impulse delay. So it is commonly used that you fire that one twice a turn.
Mm-hmm.
And you can fire it overloaded twice a turn with an 8 impulse delay. And they also have a particle splitter torpedo, which that was kind of like they threw that in there. And but the particle beam, they also have a variant where you can put the particle beam on the end of a probe, which is a pretty cool option. And it's got a lot of a hard weapon to use because basically you arm it and then you have to fire it. You cannot hold it. And basically what happens is the probe goes out to up to a range of 6 and then fires a particle beam from that point where it is. So if you have a target that's 5 hexes away, you launch the probe 6 hexes away, and it fires the beam at a shield that this firing ship can't see, but the probe went out past the ship to where the down shield is, and you can fire back at it. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, that's pretty. But it can't be fired overloaded, and it takes 2 turns to arm, and it's difficult to use. Then you've got the Warb, and the Warb has a whole bunch of stuff. The Warbs are just plain. They've got a their version of an ESG is a little bit different. It's a subspace energy field
Yes.
where the subspace energy field basically says, okay, anything at range 1 or 0, it's kind of like an ESG, but it's not like an ESG because the subspace energy field affects everything at range 1 or range 0, and it's up for X number of impulses. The longer it's up, the longer the cool down period. And I think the maximum amount of time you can keep it up is for 8 impulses. The amount of power it takes is based on how long it's up. But the subspace energy field only damages drones size 7 and size 6, or size class 6 and 7. It does not damage ships at all. But if you had a stack of 20 drones, it would hit every single drone in the stack for the same amount of damage. And I think it's like 4 points of damage per impulse.
Yeah, but remember one thing, Barry. When it comes to drones,
Yeah.
there are no one. I'm not sure
There are no drones.
Right, and even with the current missile technology, there are no scatter packs in Omega.
Correct. Other than the FRA, which is a minor power, so we can disregard them. Yes. The subspace energy field is effective against tachyon missiles,
Right.
And it is effective against shuttles.
Mm-hmm. Which means fighters.
And then fighters. Yeah, fighters, shuttles. The Orb also have the anti-proton phasers. And if you look at the chart, the firing chart for the anti-proton phasers, they are killer kick-ass. Now, they also have subspace torpedoes. And the subspace torpedoes is the only direct fire weapon in the game that you fire it, it travels for a few impulses depending on the range, and then it hits, and it's a direct fire weapon. So you roll for the hit at the moment it hits, not at the moment it's launched. And there's no way to intercept it between when it's fired and when it hits. I suppose if you were to cloak, that might affect things. But, and the further away you are from it, the longer it takes to hit.
Right.
The subspace torpedo can, if you fire it at like range 4, its hit number is on 2d6, and I think its hit number is like 11 or something ridiculous like that. So if you fired at range 4, it's very likely to hit, and you can do up to 20 points of damage. That's a nasty weapon.
What was that? What was the kind of missile again? Or torpedo?
It's called a subspace torpedo. And I think that's what it's called. It's subspace
rocket. Subspace rocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, it's now for every impulse that it takes to hit the target, or rather, no, I think it's if you fire it at a target and that target moves out of effect, it can still hit the target, but every time the target moves 1 hex between the moment of firing and the moment it hits, you add 1 to the die roll. So if you're moving rapidly, and if you move to a further range bracket, you could get out. If it's also one of these things. The more energy you put in it, the shorter the range. So if you move out, let's say you fire it and it's in range, and they move to the next range bracket and it's out of range, that's one way of negating it. But it can also reduce the damage, and by moving out of range, it can reduce the chances of it hitting. But at close range, range 4 or under, it's a nasty, nasty weapon. And the Warp will also have anti-proton beams and anti-proton lances. The anti-proton beam is a marginal weapon. I think it's a 2-turn arming weapon. But the anti-proton lance does no damage. But if you fire a beam and a lance at the same target on the same impulse, the beam does double damage.
Oh, yeah.
And one lance can double the damage of up to 3 beams. So if you had a lance and 3 beams and you fired them all at the same impulse at the same target, all 3 beams would do double damage. And single damage, it's mediocre weapon. Double damage, all of a sudden, it's a nasty weapon. Then you've got the Hivers. The Hivers have their Stinger torpedoes, which is basically kind of like a disruptor, but they can be double overloaded. They're a little bit weaker than a disruptor, but not much weaker. But they can be double overloaded. Although the double overloading takes a lot of power. It's like 2 for a standard, 4 for an overload, and I think 7 power for a double overload. But the double overload only does 3 times the standard damage, not 4 times the standard. So it's like not worth it usually. And then you've got the Alunda, who have biobolts, which biobolts are a combination heavy weapon and phaser.
Right.
Yeah, is that the one you were talking about earlier, where it could be a phaser or a heavy weapon?
No. Well, what I was talking about is, given the thing is, you really can't measure each type of phaser in Omega as being equivalent, because you have to look at the entire ship itself for that empire and how they use those phasers.
Yeah.
It's and what the weapon systems used for offense and defense. I'm not going to say purely against their historical rivals, because Lord knows when it comes to Omega, the historical rivals can change quite quickly, because they always seem to be constantly at war with somebody.
Was at war with everybody else at some point. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Not quite that, but close enough.
Right. But there's certainly a lot of variety of weapons.
Agreed. But I think, see, as I pointed out before, I think the critical thing here is that, can Omega be fixed? And is it, and more to the point, is it worth ADB's time and money to fix it? Because the ultimate question, of course, no, we're not debating that. Sorry, Earl was mentioning.
Well, to fix it, you need to put the fixes in. You need to play test it. And I
Right.
think at one point there was there were people who were willing and able to do that, had the time to do that, and ADB's like, nah, we published the rules. That's it. We're done. Go away now.
Right.
I don't know that if ADB came back and said, okay, we're open for suggestions. I don't know that at this point in history, if people have that energy anymore
Oh,
to
understood.
do that.
Oh, Barry, I totally understand that. But the thing is,
Yeah.
if I'm because the one thing I do not know how well the Omega product's selling. And the question
Right.
ultimately is is if it's not selling well, is
Then there's no point in putting money into it.
no. Actually, that's when there is money.
Or is it not selling because it's broken, or is it not
Bingo.
selling because
That's going to be the ultimate
yeah,
question. And of course, with anything in the entire universe, having keeping something the same and expecting a different result is just total. It's definition of insanity. So
yeah,
if it is possible to spend some amount of effort, obviously, which means obviously some money,
yeah,
would working on the empires and basically the weapons for those empires to improve them, to make them more
hmm
well balanced as an overall octant, would that increase sales?
it might. I don't know.
Right, but
I don't
and
know.
the, I
What
don't-
I would recommend if you were going to make the effort to fix them, I would start with the Mazarons because they're the Omega equivalent of the Federation.
right.
Everything is based on them, so they have to be solid. And
So
the
let's bring up the
Klingon
question then, Barry.
general,
Let's bring up the question. Do you
what's
think
that?
there's okay? That brings up the question. Do you think there's anything that needs to be tweaked when it comes to the Mazeron, either the ships or the weapons?
Yes, yes, I do. And the basic Mazaron cruiser is, it's an okay cruiser. Um, it's decent. It would be pretty much equivalent, I think, to the Federation heavy cruiser, not the tournament, but the classic heavy cruiser, and that's
Mm-hmm.
what it's designed for. Its weapons are the tachyon guns, which are basically a dial a photon, and that weapon I think is pretty solid. Unlike a photon, the damage drops as the range goes up, and unlike a photon, there's no fixed overload range. The more energy you put in, the shorter the range.
Right.
But it's much more accurate than a photon. So, and the hold cost is much higher than a photon. Which,
Understood, but
yeah,
Barry,
that is
when it comes to dollars to donuts, is there anything that would need to be modified? Currently, what you're saying is that the Mazeron they're good as they stand.
well, the tachyon gun is. Now, let's look at the other two weapon systems: the wide-angle phaser and then the tachyon missile. The wide-angle phaser is anemic at best.
Okay.
It seriously, it's probably about 30% lower average damage than an alpha phaser.
Correct, and I don't care.
So
The question is,
and you don't care.
well, Barry, the question is,
But
does it do
but
its
if you
job
look at the
when it comes to being in the Omega octant?
mhm.
That's the question. Because
Um,
and you and I were gone round and round about it in the past, which is
oh, I know. It says, okay, let's look at who the primary opponents of the Mazran are going to
okay,
be. The races surrounding them
right?
are the Trobrin, the Prober, the Kulligar, the Trobrin, the Prober, the Kulligar, and the Arachnid. Those are going to be their primary opponents.
Mm-hmm.
The Prober and the Trobrin are plasma races.
Right.
The Prober have a weak plasma torpedo.
Yes, it does.
Which, yeah, well, but it's highly phaser resistant.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not going to be using their phasers for plasma defense against the Prober. You just let those plasmas hit you, or you run them out.
Right. Right.
Because you can't phaser them down.
Mm-hmm.
Trobrin, the anemic phasers, against you're not going to be putting your power as much into phasers as you are into heavy weapons, because the phasers just aren't as efficient at producing damage. So the ratio of damage output from your phasers versus your heavy weapons, you're more inclined to go for the heavy weapons.
Right.
The tachyon missiles,
But remember,
are
in that case, so it sounds like for the Mazeron, the wide phasers are mainly defensive. So the question always is
against what? Well, the Kulligar doesn't have any is direct fire only.
right.
The Prober are direct fire only. So they're not facing anyone with missiles. They're only facing races with plasma.
Right. Which brings back the question: do they need more?
To have fighters, but that's
The question again comes down to being okay. So the wide phasers are weak. Are the Mazeron, given their current weapons array, are they good? Do they need stronger phasers to begin with?
I think so.
Okay.
Also,
Why?
tachyon missiles.
Why do you think they need stronger phasers?
Okay. The Trobrins have very powerful phasers. The Kulligar have very powerful phasers. The Prober have even worse phasers than the Mazrons. And the Arachnids have much more powerful phasers. So three out of the four
right,
primary...
Barry, again, you're missing the point. The point is we're not trying to compare bananas and oranges here.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
What you're saying. Because what's the function of the phasers depends upon the other context within the ships themselves. And and in the case of, let's say, and I'm talking completely off the cuff here because I don't know. When it comes to the Mazeron versus the Kulligar, maybe the Kulligar needs a more powerful phaser so it can use more offensively because it doesn't have as strong heavy weapons, to make up for it. While the Mazeron don't need.
I think
well, let me just go with the idea first, and then you can reply.
If you took a Kulligar heavy cruiser up against a Mazeron heavy cruiser, the Kulligar would wipe the Mazeron every single time And even if you took my tournament cruisers with, here's the other problem. The Mazarons have the Tachyon missiles. And the Tachyon missiles are an interesting thing. The cost, it's a variable. I mean, it's the custom, supposed to be the custom built, and they even say in the rule book, it's supposed to be the most customizable missile you can have.
Right.
But the reality, there's actually more option modules for drones than there are for Tachyon missiles. But the cost of your option modules in BPV for the Mazaron Tachyon missile is just insanely high. So, for the most part, you can't afford to use anything except the standard Tachyon missiles. Now, a standard Tachyon missile, I think, does 8 points of damage if it hits. Takes, I think, 6 to 8 points to damage and destroy. I think it's speed 20 or something like that. No, sorry, speed 16. That's it. Speed 16. Yeah, so speed 16. And then you don't have very many of them because your B racks only hold 5. Your A racks only hold 3, with no reloads, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Your racks have a firing rate of 1 missile every other turn. So the standard heavy cruiser has 2 racks, so it can fire 1 missile per turn. That missile, yeah, it's hard to take down. It takes 8 points of damage to kill it, but it only does 8 points if it hits. So you're going to look at that and say, just let it hit.
Understood.
And there's a myopic zone where there's a minimum firing range, I think 4, where it has to travel 4 impulses or 4 hexes before it arms itself.
Understood.
So if it
but remember,
reaches its target sector.
And
Go ahead.
remember one thing about the alphas to begin with. Remember that all the BPVs for alpha, like drone, ships that have drone racks.
Yeah.
Those include what kind of drones do they include in them by default? If you don't pay any extra
Speed 8. Speed 8.
That's
speed
right.
8. Yeah, I know. But it's a half a BPV point to upgrade a drone to speed 20.
Right. And that's for each drone.
Okay.
So if you have...
For each drone.
Right.
Now, a Tachyon missile, again, you pay BPV for every module you add. Extra speed is a module.
Right.
Okay. So if you want, instead of a 16 speed, if you want, you have 8 points of damage. Let's say I want to put an explosive module in there, get it up to 12 points of damage to be the same as a regular drone. I think it's like 2 BPV per explosive module. Might be 1 BPV per explosive module. So you put a explosive module in there. But all of a sudden, every time you put a Space 1 module in there, you drop the speed down.
Right.
So now it's speed 15. Okay. So you can very quickly get to the point where you're putting, you can have this monster missile, but you're putting 8, 9, 10 BPV into a single frickin' missile. That's a lot of BPV. I mean,
True.
let's look at a Kuzini strike cruiser, 4 drone rack, and let's say you put medium speed drones in there, and let's say they're A rack. That's 16 drones. That's 8 BPV. 8 BPV to upgrade every single drone on the ship to medium speed. You can put 8 BPV into one single tachyon missile. That's you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Understood.
Yeah. So I think that we need to look at that whole the tachyon missile system needs to be completely reworked. And I understand where Bruce Graw's thrust was with he wanted to create, and I understand why he did what he said. The problem, and he was looking at it from, he said, with drones, the problem was you had a gazillion objects on the board, and it was just a pain in the ass to have these drone stacks, and I'm sure he was dealing more with fleets than with tournament, because my focus has always been tournament. But, he would be looking at, well, I've got this ship has launched 4 drones or 5 drones, and this ship has done that, and you got a fleet of 10 ships, and now you're looking at 50 drones on the map, and it's like pain in the ass to keep track of them all. So he said, look, I want to make it so that, and the problem is that you got all those drones, and they're all going to get shot down because it's portable terrain. But it's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and it just bogs the game down. So he wanted to have, drones that actually can hit, that are going to hit, but you don't have too many of them. So I can understand that thinking. But I think that was a great idea. He just didn't implement it right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
maybe I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd have to review the tachyon missiles and exactly how they're put together to make sure that I understand it fully myself.
Oh yeah, it's like 10 pages of rules on the different modules that are available, and okay.
Mm-hmm. Understood. Okay, well, it's starting to get a little late, so we're going to wrap it up there. Barry, it's been a pleasure having you around for a change. Yeah. And you have a good night.
Yeah. Next week I will be in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Central Time, so that should work out pretty well.
Cool. Nashville Central Time?
It is.
Okay.
It's like just over the border of Central Time.
Right.
It's like 50 to 100 miles west of the line.
Understood. I'll have to go with you because obviously you know more about where time zones are than I do.
Yeah, I've driven down 65 many a time from Cincinnati to Nashville. I can't tell you how many times I've made that trip. And it's southern Kentucky is where you cross the line.
Okay.
The line is not perfectly north-south.
Right. Oh, understood. It never is.
Yeah.
But but
right.
to me,
and the line cuts. It doesn't cut on state borders.
Right.
In like Kentucky and Tennessee, half the state is in eastern, half the state is in central.
Which must make things quite interesting. Going back and forth between the two.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I remember talking to somebody in the Indiana who lived in a different time zone than they worked in. So that was kind of weird.
Yeah, you have to be in here 7 o'clock in the morning, which means you have to get up at 5 o'clock so you can leave at, by 6 o'clock their time, which is 5 o'clock your time. All kinds of crazy.
Well, I think more people tend to live east of where they work if they're going to do that. This particular guy lived in Eastern, worked in Central.
Okay.
It wasn't too bad.
Right.
I'll let you go.
Okay. Well, you have a good night.
Okay.
Bye.
Night. Bye.
So, had a nice little discussion there about Omega. You know, I need to do a little more research. I was looking at the Tachyon missiles really quick, and I'm not quite sure Barry's got that 100% right, but I'm deferring to him because he's probably read the rules a heck of a lot more than I have. I'm going to read it a little more fully and to understand exactly when it comes to Tachyon missiles, because I'm looking at this and it's going, what is it? It says something here, which is, the explosive strength can be improved by 4 in each various steps. Each 4-point increment costs half a point of BPV and 1 point of size. You know, explosive strength of 12 is available Y140. So that, and I'm not sure. And what does it say? It says the mass depends on the missiles, and I have to look up to see what the starting missile sizes are and things like that. So, anyhow, we'll wrap up. So, with that, I am Paul Franz, and I bid you a good night.